My name is Gerry. I've lived in London here about 15 years with my wife. There's two of us in the house here. I grow most of my plants from seed that I utilize in the garden. Um, we use I use yogurt containers that I punch holes in the bottom for some of my plants. Just recycle these. I get to use them for probably about 5-6 years before the sun starts to degrade them, because they will go out into the greenhouse to harden off in the spring. I grow most of our food in the garden that we use in the winter time, except some vegetables this time of year. We're running out of things like peppers and celery. We buy a little bit of broccoli and things like that. This is my area where I grow my plants. I have several light units here that I start my seeds and bring them up to a proper stage where they can actually go out into the garden. Now these plants that you're looking at now are our salad greens that I grow for during the winter time. We grow lettuce and bok choy down here, and green onions from the shallot bulbs that I grew last year in the garden. Utilize newspaper tubes here. You can see that all right. I grow my onions and transplants that go out in the garden, in some of them anyways, in the newspaper tubes. And just fill the tubes up with soil. These ones have nothing in them right now, but they will soon. And start the plants in the basement here. Also use the French shallots that I grew last year, and I plant them in the yogurt containers, and this supplies us with green onions during the winter time. They exhaust the bulb, putting out the top part. I grow all my own garlic. Got baskets and baskets of garlic left over here. Squash, some of the squash that's left over from the summer. My canning shelves. I can tomato sauce, tomato juice, tomato paste. I do dill pickled green beans and pickled peppers. There's rhubarb down there. There's jars of tomato juice and dill pickles, and there's pickled or processed peaches and pears, and we eat just about all winter from this. Well, there's relish, hot dog relish, and some of my dried beans and dried herbs up here. They're from the garden. Anyway, during the fall and winter, when there's inclement weather outside, I usually sit here talking to my wife, listening to music. She reads books, and I make newspaper tubes. I roll them up in little tubes like that, which I use for my plants in the basement. It takes about 10 seconds to make one tube, and in an hour of sitting here, I can make about 350 of them with no trouble at all. And here's how I use them. I use berry boxes from strawberries. I recycle those and use them for my plants. The small tubes that I make, usually for onions and small plants like that, I can get 16 into one of these berry cubes, and the larger ones, which I use for bean plants or tomato plants or larger plants, I get 9 in there, and for cucumbers, zucchini, and squash, I make larger tubes that I can get 4 in there. And this is how I supply my garden with transplants for the year's crop. Also in my pastime, I recycle textiles, and I make quilts out of them, which I donate to charities and hospitals, hospice. All the squares that I make are from scraps of quilting fabric that people have given me, and other clothing and whatnot. This piece of fabric was the favorite dress of my first wife's that she had. She really loved that one. This is from a shirt that I used to wear, and this is a pair of really ugly shorts that I used to have in my younger years.